Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to Getting Hit with the Truth. So today we are doing the What's Next on Teofimo Lopez, the reigning WBO Junior Welterweight Champion at 140 pounds. Now, before we get into that, if you could smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel, I really do appreciate any and all support that I can get as I continue to build my channel here. So we're doing a What's Next video on Teo after his, kind of unimpressive 12-round decision win over what's his name, Steve Clagget, a Canadian fighter who had 7 losses coming in and had no real credible wins under his resume to earn the title shot. And Lopez went out there, and I think a lot of people thought he was gonna just blast this guy, and he didn't, and just wasn't a great performance. So now the big question is, what's next for Teo after this kind of lackluster decision win? And we know that he's overdue for a mandatory fight. I think Teo was the last mandatory. He was a #1 contender last year when he fought Josh Taylor, and since then he's made 2 optional defenses, beating Jermaine Ortiz by a controversial decision in February, and now beating Steve Clagget by a decision in June. So, is the WBO gonna enforce a mandatory next? I mean, I'm kind of expecting that, but I think the WBO might make a consideration if it's a unification bout. So let's run through the top 10 and see what is possible for Teo next. We start with Devin Haney. Devin Haney, and all these rankings are updated, by the way. This is my mid-year top 10s right here that we're going to go through. Devin Haney has given up his WBC belt. He's a WBC champion in recess. I don't think that if he came back real quick and decided, hey, I want to fight, I want to be the WBC champion, they're going to enforce him to make a mandatory. So I don't think he's going to do that. Now, could Devin go and fight Teo for the WBO title? He probably could. I think this would be a smart move from both fighters if the WBO would allow the fight. I think it'd be a smart move for both guys because they're both kind of under the gun right now. Devin didn't look great against Ryan. You had the whole PED thing. There's been a lot of people knocking Devin because of how overly emotional he's been about that. And how he's tried to go take Ryan out. He's caught a lot of flack for that. I think a win over Teo would silence a lot of people. It would lock down the #1 spot for sure for Devin again. And I think it's a smart move. And for Teo, same thing. He goes and beats a guy like Devin. It would be a good move on his part as well. Honestly, I just don't see the fight coming together. I wish it did. I just don't see it coming together. Next, you got Jack Catterall at #3. Catterall's fighting in August against Regis Prograis. He's a WBO's #2 contender. If he wins, and Barbosa never winning an official eliminator, would they bump Catterall up to #1 ahead of him? But then Teo would probably have to wait until at least at least December to fight Catterall, and he might be willing to do that. He said he wants to stay active. But I think if it's a bigger fight, he might want to do that. But here's the kicker. Catterall's another slick southpaw. Does Teo want to get in there with another guy like that next? I think Teo's probably going to stay away from that one. Then you got Isaac Cruz, the WBA champion. I honestly think this fight is very possible, especially if Bob Arum and Al Heyman can come together with Top Rank and PBC. If they could lock down the Lomachenko-Tank Davis card, I think there's a possibility they could get Teo and Cruz to fight in the co-feature, because it's Top Rank and PBC. So I really think they should try to take advantage of a possible Top Rank and PBC card. And if Cruz defeats Jose Valenzuela on August 3rd, I really think this fight could be possible to unify belts. We'll see, because both Cruz and Lopez might have mandatories due, so we'd have to see how that all shakes out. IBF champion Liam Paro. I do believe that Eddie Hearn wants to bring a good opponent over to Australia for the fight. But honestly, I think they're going to try, from what I'm hearing, is there's negotiations going on right now that Paro could fight former unified lightweight champ George Kambosos Jr. next in his initial defense in Australia. And if he doesn't fight him, I think he might make his mandatory to get it out of the way. So, going to be interesting to see how that one shakes out right there for Paro. But I don't think Paro and Teo is going to happen next. For some reason, I just don't think Eddie Hearn and Bob Arum are going to come together for that one. Then you got WBC champion Alberto Puello. Not going to happen. Puello, now that he's been upgraded to champ, has back-to-back mandatories due. He has to fight Sandor Martin and then Gary Antoine Russell after that. So a unification with Teo is just off the table. Then you got Josh Taylor in a rematch. I don't see that. Taylor hasn't done anything since last year. He lost to Jack Catterall. There's no call for a rematch. He won by wide margins. Did Teo? No reason for a rematch. Then you got Jose Ramirez. If Golden Boy and Top Rank were willing to work together to bring Ramirez back over to Top Rank for the fight, I think it's possible because it's a big fight. But I'm not sure Bob Arum's going to rush to the front of the line for a guy like Ramirez who went and signed with another promotion. So honestly, I'm going to say no to that one. Then you got Sandor Martin. Not going to happen. Martin's fighting Puello next in his mandatory shot for the WBC title. Then you got Jermaine Ortiz in a rematch. Not going to happen. Teo does not want to get back in there with Ortiz following that performance he had against him in the first fight. Then you got Subriel Matias, the former IBF champ. It might have been a tough one to make if he was still IBF champion, but now that he's lost to Paro, Lopez is not going to be interested. Then there's Regis Prograis. This one's interesting. If Prograis can beat Jack Catterall, he's going to shoot up the WBO rankings. Would Lopez want to fight Teo? Would Lopez want to fight Prograis? He might, especially if Prograis moves to the top spot in the WBO, because remember, again, Arnold Barbosa never locked down that top spot. He never won an eliminator for that top spot. Then you got Gary Antoine Russell. Not going to happen. He's fighting, he's in line to fight, the winner of Puello Martin for the WBC belt. It's Top Rank in PBC, and it's an opponent with a style that I don't think Lopez would want to match against. And then you got Ismael Barroso, who is waiting around for his WBA title shot, hasn't gotten it. He's a 40-plus-year-old fighter, packs a big punch. Would Lopez want to give him that smoke? I don't know. He might, just to silence a lot of people, to say, you know what, I'm willing to fight this guy because nobody else will. But would he really be willing to fight the guy? That's one of those questions. And then finally, I'm looking at, let's look to an option he had mentioned, which is moving up to 147 against Brian Norman for the welterweight title. I don't think he's going to do that. Norman is a very tough fighter, and I don't think that's a good matchup for Lopez. And then Terrence Crawford. I think Crawford might be the only other guy at welterweight that Lopez would fight next, just to silence the critics to get a big fight. But that fight only happens, in my opinion, if Crawford loses to Madrimov on August 3rd, which, hey, you never know. Crawford's moving into a new weight class. So I do think there might be a possibility of that. But again, Crawford would have to lose to Madrimov and then come back down to 147 and invite Teofimo up to fight him. But then they got to figure out the Brian Norman situation. But I think Teo would supersede Brian Norman for the title shot. So outside possibility of that. And then anybody moving up in weight, if Vasily Lomachenko is willing to move to the side for Tank Davis and Shakur Stevenson to happen, then why not Lomachenko move up to 140 and fight Teo if he's comfortable with the weight? Go get that rematch and beat him. I think he's susceptible right now. He really is. And I honestly think Loma beats him in a rematch. But could Loma handle the 140-pound weight class? That'd be the big question, you know, that would need to be answered. So, I don't think Tank moves up and fights Teo. You know, and those are the only two options from 135 that I think would be even close to plausible. So for Teo, I really believe a mandatory defense against Arnold Barbosa Jr. is likely to happen if the WBO orders a belt, but also might be the better move for him because Barbosa is a come forward guy that throws a bunch of punches, but doesn't really have a high, you know, boxing skill, you know, in my opinion. He just kind of comes forward, throws a bunch of punches. I think Teo can stand there, move side to side, land big shots, might be able to knock him out. And Barbosa doesn't pack a big punch either, so it kind of works into multiple positives for Teo. He could definitely check off, you know, whether you know, the mandatory part, and then it's a guy that stylistically would and could make Teo look good to where he would have a positive outlook rolling into the new year. Right now, he doesn't have a positive outlook at all. So a lot of fans are not happy with him. This might be able to get him the mandatory out of the way and get people back on his, you know, the fans back on his side and happy with him so he can look towards big fights in 2025. So we'll see. But again, I think that's the fight that makes the most sense in terms of getting your mandatory out of the way and looking good at the same time, and really not having to worry about much in terms of like being knocked out, dangerous opponent kind of deal. But we're gonna see if he'll wait around to see what happens with Catterall and Prograis, and then maybe make a move there. There's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of things that need to happen, but I'm hoping Teo makes the right choice. So we'll see what happens, but that's it. That's what I got. That's my what's next on Teofimo Lopez, the reigning WBO Junior Welterweight Champion of the world at 140 pounds, following another optional defense victory, a unanimous decision over Canadian Steve Clagget. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing. You've been here with the truth.